groups with A, B, C, and D. On Monday the 17th, we would take in 1/4 of the students, group A. We would teach them the routines and procedures, especially with those younger kids. It's important that they learn where to go, what to do. Lunch will be different. All those procedures are going to have been amended from last year because of the guidelines we're asked to follow. So you would take in 1/4 of your kids every day. You can never have more than 25% of your population during the first 4 days of that week, the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. On Friday the 21st, all students would remain home, staff would report to work. That would be a day for additional sanitizing. If they need to meet to amend any policies or if something didn't work, and that's the way to fix it. They would also either send the students home with work or put out a virtual lesson that the students could do. That's grades 1 through 12. During that week of the 17th through the 21st, usually with your pre-K and your kindergarten, there's some screening and testing that goes on. That takes a couple of days. What we would do during that week of the 17th to the 21st, all of your screening and testing for kindergarten and pre-K will take place. You'd have to schedule it one parent at a time so they can come in, either orient the parent for pre-K or test them for kindergarten, and get all that done during that week. On Monday, August 24th, that's when you would begin your regular schedule for grades 1 to 12. Grades 1 through 5 would report to everybody 100% attendance 5 days a week. Grades 6 through 12, you would start with your alternating schedule. Group A would report on Monday and Thursday. Group B would report on Tuesday and Friday. Wednesday would be a planning day for RTI, any other makeup or tutoring that students would require. It's a sanitation day for the school. And your students, it's still considered a school day because the teachers will have to put on a lesson for them that day. Okay. For the 6 through 12 students, on the day that they're at school, they're going to get in-person instruction, and on the days that they're not at school, a virtual lesson would be provided. They would be expected to log in, complete their lesson, submit their work. So while the primary teachers, primary elementary, are going every day, they have to teach the children that are in front of them that day. Junior high and high school teachers, while their students are not there every day, they're expected to teach the kids that are seated in front of them, as well as push out a lesson for those students who are at home. Okay. The guidelines that we have been given by the state are that if you can keep the students in static groups, when you get there in the morning, you get there together in a class with 24 students and 1 adult, and they stay with that group all day long and don't interact with other students, then you can keep them together, you can have 24 in the room. But if you can't do static groups, then they're recommending that you go with the 6-foot distance and the mask and all the other precautions. So that's why there's the difference between the lower grades and the upper grades. In the upper grades, a junior high kid, or especially a high school kid, in 5th grade, they all take the same subjects all day long. Generally, they stay with 1 or 2 teachers a day, and you can alternate just the teachers. If you take a freshman in high school, they might start out in algebra 1 in the morning, a group of 25 or 30 kids, and then when the bell rings and you go to second block, they just all go in different directions. You don't all take the same subjects all day long. So you can't keep them in a static group the way you can with the lower grades. So that's why you have the difference between the lower grades and the upper grades. Now, for pre-K and kindergarten, remember, they're going to do their screening, their testing, whatnot. They have a full week to do it, the 17th through the 21st. Now, these are our smallest kids. They literally have to be led by the hand everywhere. So the week of the 24th, we're going to stagger their intake, again, with 25%. So on Monday, you would have 25% of your pre-K and K that's going to show up, and Tuesday another 25%, and so on to Thursday. Okay. pre-K and K. Now, on Friday, you would do 50% attendance, and on Monday, you would do the other 50%, and then on Tuesday, which actually ends up being September 1st, is when your pre-K and K would start coming every day. So you would not have every student on the primary campus until September 1st. So we've tried to design something where you're phasing everybody in, give time to learn and practice those routines. Mr. Wills did a study of the minutes, and we are just barely within the minutes, but as of now, we're still within the required minutes from the state. At this time, the state superintendent has told us they're not proposing a waiver on minutes. Will they do that in the future? That's to be determined. So as of now, we have to operate under the assumption that we have to still put in our minimum number of minutes. We have emergency minutes built in every day, so over time we accumulate extra days. We have PD days built in during the fall and the spring, where if we get in a bind, we can recapture some of those days. So, and in the worst case scenario, if we have to take a few days from a holiday or something, we get a storm or we have to shut down for some reason, we have some contingency plans for it. So our recommendation, staff recommendation in mind is that we alter the calendar or in-person instruction based on what I just provided.
Okay, any discussion? Discussion?
Okay, how many, from 1 to 5, how many kids are going to go virtual?
Okay, we put out a link on the website. We did send some postcards home. I did interviews with Channel 3 and Channel 10. So we tried to get the word out. We have about 2,200 people that have expressed an interest in it. And then we're going through like step 2 of that, where we're contacting the parents. We send out an email with a video explaining what it is. And so people are doing their final step in registration. So right now we're up to 600 or 700 people who have completed the second step of the registration. And we have had some people who, once they find out what the program is, they're choosing to take their children out. One of the misconceptions they had was, like junior high and high school, they thought their children were only going to get a lesson twice a week. But when we explained that there would be virtual lessons for them on the days they're not there, they opted to send their children to school. So I have 2,200 people that have expressed an interest. A final number we're working on. What's going to, the next couple of days, the 3 virtual instructors that we have, and those that have not responded via email and formally registered, they are going to start calling them and talking, make sure they understand everything, understand how the program works, and find out if they still want to stay in. I'm anticipating that we're going to lose some, and a lot of them are going to stay. I don't have a number, I can't estimate the number, but we're working on that.
So from 1 to 5, the grades, how many kids are in a classroom now?
Class sizes vary, but a lot of them are 25, 26, 27, depending on the grade level.
25 to 27?
Yeah.
And so we're going to make it smaller?
Well, we're going to have to stick with the 24 students and 1 adult. You can't have more than 25 in the schools. So the schools are working through their schedules now. We're trying to finalize how many virtual kids we're going to have, and those we know they aren't going to be in a classroom. So what I've directed the principals to do and staff takes a few primary, for example. I remember their number off the top of my head. They have 118 kids that have expressed an interest in going virtual. So that equates to about 5 teachers on our allocation ratios, 21 to 1 at that level. So that's 5 teachers that she would be overstaffed. But she's going to use some of those people to reduce the class sizes, keep it at 24 to 1, and she can take a couple of those people and put them in charge of the virtual on her campus. That way they still tie to and are working with a teacher from that campus. If the child decides they want to come back to school a few weeks or the end of the 9 weeks or whatever, they will have been connected to someone on the campus that can return. And as students start to return, she can begin to take some of those virtual people and place them back in the classroom. I'm not going to take the teachers off the campus and not reassign them anywhere. They're going to stay with the campus and they'll monitor the virtual on that campus.
I know during the summertime, I think you had the teachers going from virtual school themselves, in case something would happen. That's what they're gonna be having, or is it our virtual school?
No, it's, right now, what we're leaning toward doing is using Edgenuity, the virtual school program, for those students who would be on virtual. And the decision's not final because there's some considerations we have to look at. But the reason I'm looking at doing it that way is that everybody's going to be very busy. You're going to have kids with them all day long. So I wanted them to worry about the kids that are in front of them and not have to design lessons and push it out to kids that are going to be at home. Those students will be on the virtual program and there'll be a couple of teachers detailed to work with them so that the teachers in the classroom can focus on the kids in front of them, following safety procedures as well as trying to teach them while they're there.
All right, any other discussion?
Just one. So the calendar that we're following is basically the state that's mandating this?
They're not mandating it, but based on the guidelines they gave us. I did this for a couple of reasons. I had calls with principals, calls with staff, calls with the State Department. We had a focus group with the teachers of the year, principals of the year, a representative from LFT. Ms. Edna was on the committee, and I got different ideas in different places. I did the 25% staggered intake that came from one of the principals on the committee. I looked at what other districts are doing, and most districts are doing something pretty close to what we're doing. And I used the idea, I figured, give teachers plenty of time to prepare. When you take the kids in, take them in slowly, time to train everybody on the life procedures. There's a guidance I'm getting from the medical professionals in the Department of Education. The governor said it in his press conference today about schools. If you follow the guidelines, you minimize the risk. So this is all designed to minimize the risk and allow people to learn the guidelines and plan and prepare. And in addition to that, by backing up the start date for all students to the 24th, it buys us a little more time, and hopefully the numbers will go down by that time. And we will manage it. There's a thought process that went into input from different places.
We're gonna check temperatures, like when the kids get on the bus or at school.
I'm gonna have a little presentation I'm gonna do before we move into the next slide.
Accept the calendar. Move to accept the calendar.
Well, we'll accept, and the second part is detail. All right, we're gonna do a roll call. Ms. Christine, you'll be able to give me the votes. Steve Fusilli.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Vital. Girls not there. Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Clay.
Yes.
Mr. Stelling.
Yes.
Mr. Forte.
Yes.
Mr. Abraham.
Yes.
Mr. Knott.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes. Okay, so motion passed. All right, second item is consider and/or approve policy reflecting the changes made at the July 15th Bessie meeting. That would be Mr. Blanchard, but there are 4 people from the public who would like to speak. We'll do that first. Okay, we'll answer first, all right. So what I'll do is I'll call up the people who signed the cards to speak on it. And you can come up here to the mic at this table, speak. I'll give everybody 3 minutes. That should be enough. Okay, first one is St. Martin Federation, Tony and Tiffany Dan.
President, I'd like to make one comment. I met with Ms. Tony and Ms. Tiffany yesterday. They came in and expressed their concerns. Had a very good meeting. we don't agree on everything, but we met and we're able to discuss some things very respectfully. And reasonable manner.
Okay. All right, you may begin.
Okay, good evening. I'm happy to see that everyone here is well and healthy tonight. I have read the St. Martin guidelines for school reentry and appreciate all the work that went into it. I know it isn't easy, like I told Mr. Blanchard, and I know he's been combing through everything. When I think about the possibilities of school reopening, I just feel this pit in my stomach. As a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, I'm concerned that the people I love and care could be put at an unnecessary risk by returning to school. That they may become sick and maybe even die. I'm concerned about school will become a center for increased community spread of COVID-19. As the president of St. Martin Federation of Teachers and School Employees, I know my concerns are echoed throughout the district for my fellow teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, as well as parents, grandparents, and students themselves. Our union conducted a survey of almost 15,000 teachers, parents, school employees, and concerned community members throughout the state, and we saw that our region, COVID Region 4, 57% of parents and almost 70% of school employees were not comfortable with sending their kids back to school. I know that part of the St. Martin plan includes an option for parents to choose virtual learning, and about 1,700, is that right, Mr. Blanchard, about 17, that signed up for virtual?
Well, we're up to 2,200 that have expressed interest.
Okay.
Not final registration.
They signed up, and this remote option in an attempt to keep their families safe, but we have to be transparent. This program is from a third-party vendor. This is not comparable to the education that certified St. Martin Parish teachers can offer. Students will not be able to easily transition between online and classroom work. We should be able to offer students who can't risk exposure in the classroom a better option. But that will only be possible if we direct appropriate resources to developing a comprehensive distant learning program. And I think people get virtual distant learning. I think they use that interchangeably and really not straight on the definition. We all want to see kids back in the classroom. Personally, I can't wait. However, not at the expense of our children and the teachers, the bus drivers, everyone in that's involved in kids' education. New cases of COVID-19 are spiking all over. Today, the governor reported we're number 2 per capita, and he said almost number 1. We are 0.5 from being number 1. I'm asking if you can please consider moving the start date of school back to after Labor Day, with when they do return to have at least pre-K through 5 do the very virtual hybrid, because that wear and tear. Teachers are scared. Bus drivers are scared. They ride a bus with a mask on, and kids, they can't mandate. We're supposed to be 6 feet apart. There's no way a classroom can fit 24 desks 6 feet apart. There's no way. If you can please, okay.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay. I just want you to reconsider that, the safety first. And we have people that came out to really, they're scared. So please consider that. Thank you.
All right, next would be Dr. Jan Bonet. thought you were representing a group.
I am the representative, but she has, the three of us are speaking.
But it's still on the floor.
Okay, well,
So, I mean, if you need a couple more minutes.
I was gonna speak. She spoke and then I was gonna speak.
the three of us were going to speak.
Okay, well, I
This
have.
is-
Dr. Bonet is still on a separate card.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, you did?
Well, I tell you, once you let the doctor speak, and then you. can-
Okay, okay, right, thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Jan Boney, and my doctorate is from Columbia University, where we have really fine immunologists, epidemiologists, and my degree is in French literature. I'm really proud to teach at Cecilia High School, to teach in St. Martin Parish. And it's been my dream to come back home to my state of Louisiana and teach. And because I really want to teach, I've been following this all summer, these numbers, and I want to tell you about what I found, and to tell you that I think that in-person opening is unwise and too soon. To open safely, you have to have testing and tracing, hospital capacity, community transmission rate is acceptable, preferably trending down, and the school's ability, we have to be able to mask and to distance. Of all of those parameters, we have masks, and that's it. I'd like to speak about the community transmission rate. This is from our Surgeon General of the United States. What I want people to know is the biggest determinant of whether or not we can go back to school actually has little to do with the actual schools. It's your background transmission rate, Adams said. Ours right now in St. Martin Parish is in the 50s. That means 50 new daily tests on average per 100,000 people. So when you know that we have 25 new positives in a day, that's in line with that number of 50. It's been as high as 58 in the last 2 weeks. Other districts are closing the schools and opening up virtual school. Harris County with 33, remember we're in the 50s. Orleans Parish, 22. A brand new study shows that students over 10 are at least as infectious if they have COVID as adults. In practical terms, what does a group of 10 St. Martin Parish people mean? Average of 10, a number of 10, the average is 54%. So one person is infectious with COVID. 54%. If you have 6 classes in 2 days or 6 classes every day, as we do in the other high schools in our parish, the odds are 90% that a teacher would have encountered someone who's infectious with COVID. The students as well, we know that high school is sort of like speed dating, a little slower. All those students switching around, I'm really worried about that, what the consequences are for their families. We're starting early. This pushing it off 10 days is very welcome, but I still worry that we're going to be before countless other school districts, and that we'll be encountering bad consequences early on, and then we'll have to shut down. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Tiffany?
All right, I gave all of you a blue packet. In the blue packet, the type of, it's called revising the reopening plan. On the revising the opening plan, first and foremost, I want to tell you guys, I am a parent of a second grade student here at St. Martin Parish, as well as a teacher in an elementary school in St. Martin Parish. I have an option. I am able to let my little girl do virtual because I have a family support system that I can do that. I understand that all of our parents do not have that. So on my proposal of the revising plan, what I'm asking the board to do is consider revising the reopening to make pre-K through 5 students also have a hybrid model similar to 6 through 12. In the notes, I put like some different issues that are with the plan, as well as, if you would decide to do the hybrid, what this would offer for us. So, these pre-K to 5 students are less likely to keep their masks on all day and aren't aware of social distancing. Our smallest kids do not understand the risk of COVID. Pre-K to 5, they can have up to 24 kids in the classroom. These smallest kids are going to be in our largest groups if we open it up with 100%. Teachers have set up their classrooms, and we're right now, most of them with the parameters are only allowed about to have 12 to 13 students that will be 6 feet apart. If we put more students in there, those kids in second grade, like I work on an elementary school campus, my second grade students, all students are not mandated to wear masks. So we're gonna have second grade students who are gonna be within 6 feet of each other if the numbers are larger than 12 or 13 within a classroom. Pre-K and 5 teachers, elementary teachers are gonna be working the longest hours as well as not having those breaks that we're accustomed to. We will not have traditional PE, computer lab, and those kinds of things within our class day. Middle school teachers will get their 50 minutes daily, as well as high school teachers will get their 9 minutes daily, as well as the Wednesdays that they have on the schedule for planning. So our concern is that our elementary teachers with the smallest kids will have the largest number, as well as be overworked. And studies show that people that are overworked are more likely to get sick. So what I'm asking you guys to do today is to consider changing the plan, or letting pre-K through 5 students also have the hybrid model. Similar, Lafayette Parish, that's what they are. They have proposed. This solution would allow us to decrease our numbers in our pre-K through 5 classrooms, as well as allow the desks to be 6 feet apart, with the numbers being smaller daily. This would also provide our teachers with adequate planning time to fill in the gaps from the spring semester. So I'm asking you guys to please look at the plan. I understand that some parents are not as privileged as myself to be able to pick the virtual model. So I'm asking you guys to please consider pre-K through 5 teachers and students also having the hybrid model. Okay, I thank you guys. Have a great day.
Next is Ann Thomasy.
As a bus driver for 30-some years, I'm just concerned about the kids. Us having to wear the masks at 100-something degrees. That's never good. How are you going to keep these kids to keep the masks? And if they don't keep them, what do we do? What do we do about it? Who we turn them into? They're not going to do it. Okay, and another thing is, they should be taking that temperature before they get on the bus, not once they're at school. Because by that time, if there's one that's sick, they've been infected off. Something needs to be done about that. I mean, then they're gonna blame us for bringing an infected kid to school. So y'all please consider what's gonna happen. I mean, y'all gotta think of us driving this bus for 100 degrees with this. And the kids in there. There's no air. It's hot.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. All right, next, James Crow.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Boyd. My name is James Crow. I am the Louisiana Association of Educators union representative for our members here in St. Martin Parish. As you well know, the schedule that you just proposed will have teachers, classroom nurses, school aides, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, and other dedicated education professionals scheduled to resume their work on the front lines as they welcome hundreds of students back to school. Are these women and men ready to see their students? Absolutely. Are they eager to restore a sense of normalcy to their children, to the children they serve? Of course. There is, however, a level of fear that comes with the unknown. We can't blame our educators for being uneasy with the thought of being in a confined space with, in most cases, 24 other individuals, not knowing where these individuals have been, with whom they have been in contact with.
St. Martin's Public School employees dedicate their lives to serving the future generations of this parish and this state. We owe it to them to hear their concerns and ease their anxieties and do everything we can to help them feel safe. The whole situation is concerning for us as a professional association. Staying out of the school for an extended period of time will only stands to worsen our students' emotional health. We understand that. But at the same time, this virus is proven to be deadly. It is important to remember that while most children and teenagers tend to handle COVID-19 quite well, a large population of St. Martin's school employees are older, have underlying health conditions and issues, or have family members who have underlying health conditions and issues. We cannot afford to put one student's or one educator's life at risk. The consensus of educators I have spoken with in St. Martin is that we are not yet ready to open. Evidence of all the people in this room out here and weren't able to get in who were concerned, educators or parents, and wanted to get in here and hear what was being decided is proof of that. But regardless of whether we return in 3 weeks, as you just adopted, or in 3 months, our focus should be on ensuring that adequate measures are in place that protect all of the individuals learning and working in our school. It is not a political issue, it is a human issue. And the most important consideration we should have in this whole situation is the protection of lives at all costs. Please keep that in mind when you're adopting your policies for the rest of the school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
I have a question. Yeah, I'm hearing the concern of teachers, parents, and what have you. But that item, shouldn't that item be placed before we approve the school calendar? Have these individuals come speak so I could make a thorough decision as to what I voted on previously? These personnel should have been here first, before we approve their calendar. I feel that that's an unfair injustice to some board members and parents and others in the community. Have I heard of these individuals say, I probably have a change of mind? Now, I don't vote. Now, I want to change my vote.
Well, I think that,
And that's unfair.
once we've heard Mr. Blanchard's, presentation and we vote on the next item, I think we can, revote, not say revote today, but at the next meeting, which is August.
Actually, I think our policy, Mr. Boyer, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but anyone from the prevailing side can bring the item up again, and it passed unanimously, so any board member can bring it up to reconsider the items.
And actually, Mr. Boyd, if they're supposed to be like a 2/3 term, to bring it back up. I'm not, Mr. Not, if he was here, he can answer that.
That's correct.
He said that's correct. He said that's correct.
What?
Mr. Boyer said that was correct.
You're correct, Mr. Blanchard. Anyone on the prevailing side can bring it up in the same meeting.
He said what Mr. Blanchard said is correct. Any board member that has brought it up can
Right.
bring it back up.
That's correct. I know that. In order for it to be voted on again, is it just a unanimous vote or is it a 2/3 vote that has to pass?
Is it a unanimous vote, so
Just a majority vote.
majority?
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Blanchard, go ahead.
The policies that are in your packet are a draft policy of, we took some information from Forethought Consulting, we took some information from LSBA, and it's all based on what Bessie passed. And my understanding is Bessie's requiring us to adopt that policy, or policies in line with what they passed. And so that's why, one of the reasons the item is on the agenda. Now, I met the members of LFT, listened to concerns of different people, I've attended numerous meetings with the Department of Education, as well as webinars and meetings with superintendents. We had a webinar today, and multiple doctors. Today was Dr. Finger with Children's Hospital out of New Orleans. And all of them are recommending that we open school. So I'm basing my recommendation on what the officials of the Louisiana Department of Education, as well as the medical officials of the Department of Health and Hospitals, are recommending for us to do. So that's the basis of my recommendation. The policies that we have in here lead us to some of the actions that we're going to take on a day-to-day basis in school. I'm going to start at the beginning. Ms. Ann, we communicate often. She calls me with different things, it's flooding and whatnot, so you have a great deal of respect for Ms. Ann, we have a good relationship. And she brought up a valid point about the thermometers. Now, when we sat in, dealing with this since early June, and the original plan was to take the temperature of the kids when they got on the bus. But you're using a handheld thermometer that reads skin temperature. And in some school districts where they have no internet and had to run an in-person summer school program, what was happening the first 2 days is if you got a kid waiting on the side of the road to get on the bus, or the parent drops them off, or the bus drops them off, if you take their temperature when they're outside in the heat, they're gonna light up with a fever. It happens even, I was talking to Stacy Blanchard with the sheriff's office, and they said they've had some problems with it too. If you park far away from the office and you gotta walk any distance in the sun, by the time you get there, you show up with a fever. Because that little handheld thermometer is measuring skin temperature, not your internal body temperature. So, like in West Carroll or East Carroll Parish, which is strong, told me the first couple of days they had all kinds of kids with fever. But they learned if you put them in the air conditioner for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and come back and take their temperature, their skin cools off, and then nobody was showing up with a fever. The other concern came up with about transportation is very often you have kids waiting at a stop. You might have an older neighbor watching the kid, or an older sibling, something of that nature. You get 3 or 4 or 5 kids at a stop, so they're getting on the bus. You can take their temperature, and little Johnny ends up with a fever, so you make him get off the bus. If he's a high school kid, that's one thing. But what if he's 6 years old? You're gonna leave a 6-year-old kid on the side of the road? That's a liability concern for the district and for the driver. So the advice came back that, well, put them on the bus, that the bus driver wears a mask, that all of the kids in grades 3 and up, they wear their mask. If they don't, we will address it at the school. Okay? Turn them in, we're gonna contact the parent, and they're gonna have some options, and they're gonna have to choose an option. You can wear the mask, or you may have to go virtual if you absolutely refuse, because that mask is a mandate by the governor, and we already told it on. We have to abide by it. So they get to school, we're gonna get them in the building, get everybody in a classroom. After they've been in there a little while, then we'll take everybody's temperature, the adults and the kids. If they have a fever or they're exhibiting other symptoms, every school has had to submit a plan, and on that plan is they have to have a quarantine room. If somebody's got symptoms, they have to be immediately brought to the quarantine room. They sit there, you give them 10 or 15 more minutes, and you check the temperature again. The person that's going to be in the quarantine room, we're purchasing, they're going to have a mask. We have paper masks. We purchase a face shield to put over the paper mask, gloves, as well as a disposable robe, very similar to what health professionals wear. So they're going to be in that room potentially with multiple kids who have symptoms. So we've got additional protections for them. That room, when the kid goes in there, if they don't have a fever, if they cool off, they don't have a fever, they'll be sent back to class. If they have a fever or other symptoms, the parents are going to be called on the parents to come pick them up. Our health center, Ms. Adrian, has communicated with Dr. Stefanski's office, and they've come up with a protocol which is still in development. They're refining it, but basically, they're going to report that information to the regional medical director. And the child, the parent is going to be advised to take the child is going to be tested. And once the results are received, they're going to begin with the contact tracing and all that sort of stuff. And we're going to do that in working with Dr. Stefanski's office. That's the advice and the directive we've been given. I've got questions about, okay, if the kid is positive or a teacher tests positive, who are you going to quarantine? Well, the answer to that is Dr. Stefanski's office is gonna work with us in determining who you quarantine. They're gonna come in and determine, do some tracing, who's around the kid, were they wearing the mask, did they follow all precautions? And they'll determine whether it's one kid, 10 kids, the whole class, or depending on the numbers of the whole school. That decision is not going to be made by the principal or me by ourselves. It's going to be made with health professionals also. That's the guidance we've got from the state. Every school has had to come up with procedures. They're submitting their plans, and I'm reading through them. They're thick, and I'm not about halfway through them, but where they have to come, have a plan in place to receive the kids in the morning. The teachers are going to have to be there early. Bus drivers may have to drive a little longer, run extra routes. Custodians are going to have to clean a lot more than they were cleaning before. Supervisors are going to be in the schools every morning and helping. If a teacher has to leave or whatever, we got to take their place. Often, people tell me we have too many supervisors, but the fact is, we have 17 school sites, and I don't have enough supervisors to send one to every site. I have coordinators that have to fill in the gaps. So everybody, your supervisors and coordinators can be detailed out to the schools, to assist the schools, and myself. Okay? And with a mask and all that other stuff that everybody else has to wear. Okay, so we're gonna do that intake in the morning. Kids are gonna be spread out. They're gonna follow their routines. We've purchased a gallon of hand sanitizer for every bus. We've purchased multiple gallons for every school for them to have in the big public areas as they're bringing kids to lunch, to recess, to the bathroom, all those kinds of things. We've purchased small bottles of sanitizer for teachers to have in their rooms. We've purchased a bottle of sanitizer that is not chlorine-based for every teacher and every bus driver, 32-ounce bottle. And we've purchased, we're in the process of purchasing, we buy this stuff in bulk. So like the sanitizer, we're buying 2 440-gallon totes. So right at 900 gallons is our first order. That'll be, we're gonna have a process using the maintenance guys. Everybody's gonna get the supply of it. And as they deplete the supply, maintenance will bring them, 5-gallon containers to refill. As things empty, the custodian can refill it. As the school gets low, maintenance will bring them more. The same thing with hand sanitizer. We bought several pounds of this stuff, as well as several 55-gallon containers that we can shuttle and keep them supplied. I joked with the principals the other day, those of you that are around my age, you remember that old commercial about how many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop? Well, the question with us is, how many squirts does it take to get to the bottom of a bottle of hand sanitizer? We don't know how long the gallon's gonna last, so we've ordered enough, but we think we can get 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. As we see it depleting, we're gonna continue to place those additional orders. We're purchasing extra masks. We've got over 200 thermometers. We're purchasing gloves to give to the bus drivers, the custodians, the teachers. The sanitizer in the 32-ounce bottle that we're giving to the bus drivers and the teachers is a food-grade hydrogen peroxide. You pour peroxide on an open cut. It's non-toxic, it kills germs. The vendor that sold it to us, we got quotes and investigated. Mr. Darcel did a lot of work on that, finding out what we could get and how it works and what are the specs. So this stuff right here is guaranteed to kill COVID and flu and other things within 30 seconds of contact. So you can spray it on your hands and use it as a sanitizer. You can wipe the desktop with it. You can wipe the bus seat. And it's not chlorine-based, so it's not going to make things rust. It's not going to mess up the upholstery. It's not going to stain people's clothes. So we tried to think of as many things as we could. So like restrooms, the custodians, every hour, we're going to have to make a pass through the restroom and sanitize all those high-touch surfaces, as well as mopping it several times a day and cleaning the toilets like they normally do. You're going to have to keep it stacked with soap and paper towels. So we've spent a lot of time, and we're already up to, we haven't completed the first one of these cases. We're finalizing that stuff this week. The things we knew we needed and we thought we would have a shortage of that would take a long time to get here, we've already ordered. Some of the other stuff, like the sanitizer Mr. Darcel is getting, the guy told us I can have it to you in a week. So we're going to place that order this week. We're trying to follow all the guidelines as closely as possible. Give our staff, our employees, the supplies and the protection they're going to need. We've got paper masks. Employees and students will need to provide their own cloth mask now that it's a mandate, but we've provided, we've got, the sheriff's office provided 2,000 paper masks, and we're ordering several thousand also to distribute to the schools. If a parent, a kid, a teacher needs a mask, they'll have one they can use for the day. So we've also purchased atomizers for every school and 2 for the bus shuttle. What that is, it's a fogger. You pour the sanitizer in there, you walk around the school, it creates a mist and a fog that goes up into the air and comes down and falls on stuff that's got the sanitizer in it. So if you miss a spot, or there's something you didn't wipe a wall or something, that atomizer's there to catch anything that misses. They can run that through the school once or twice a week, whatever they deem necessary. Same thing with the buses. It works very quickly. You can run that atomizer through a bus. They do it in about 30 seconds. Literally turn it on, walk to the back of the bus, walk back to the front of the bus. It makes a mist that just kind of settles on everything. Again, it's peroxide. We've all been using that all our lives on the cut. It's not anything toxic. It's not going to stain your clothes, damage stuff. So those are some of the measures that we've taken to try to protect our staff and our students. Of course, we are worried about safety. Safety and health of our employees is very important. The safety and health of our students is very important. I received a copy of the survey from LFT. We also have a stakeholder committee that came in. Some of the ideas we got, like the staggered intake, comes from that committee. So we tried to listen and do everything we could that was reasonable. Mike Falk with the State Superintendent's Association sent out an email today. The governor's office is asking for the start dates of school in every district. Now, I know St. Landry's doing full virtual, but by the time I came to the meeting, there were 20 or 30 districts that had responded. They were all opening up. And St. Martin Parish had one of the later dates. But when we were opening up, we backed up our date, like I said, trying to stagger the intake, backing it up a little bit to buy a little bit more time before we have to take large numbers of people in. We've really put a lot of thought into it, with safety being one of our primary concerns. Every meeting I'm going to, everything up to the governor's conference today, they're encouraging schools to open. And my decision in recommending this to the board is based on the information that I'm hearing from the medical professionals as well as people at the Department of Education. It's not an easily made decision. I've agonized over the decision. I've met with different people over it, had multiple meetings with the principals and the staff. We're doing that. My concerns with doing like a virtual opening where we do full virtual is a lot of our kids do not have reliable internet. We got CARES Act money. We spent every penny of it. Not yet, but we're in the process of spending it. We'll have a device for every kid from kindergarten to 12th grade. We're setting up cradle points with internet for people who don't have it, where they can drive, and we're trying to do it where it's within a few miles of their house. They can drive, log on, download their work and do it. We've purchased Wi-Fi devices for people in extreme conditions. But there's not enough money in there for us to provide internet for every person in the parish. It's a recurring cost. And I've heard some people say that the CARES Act should pay for everything. Well, we have not spent a nickel on salaries, sending people for training anywhere. It is all on devices, internet, and we reserved a small amount to help pay for some of the hand sanitizer and things like that. But it's a small percentage of what we're spending on technology. But you still have a lot of people that don't have reliable internet, and to think that you can turn on the computer at school and teach into the computer, and a kid at home is going to be able to turn it on and just follow you along all day long. People don't have internet with bandwidth that's reliable. If you have more than one person in the house trying to use the internet, it becomes a problem. So you have a lot of kids at home that are not going to be getting anywhere near the type of education you get if they come to school. Okay? At least with our junior high and high school kids, they're a little older. They know how to use the Chromebooks, and they're more capable of following along. But our lower grade kids, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they've had a little bit of experience with the Chromebook. But if we don't open, and we just give them a device, which by the way, we ordered the devices that were supposed to be in mid-July, the first shipment. That was backed up to the 1st of August, and a couple of days ago, Mr. Foster got notice, that's been backed up to August 12th. That's just the first batch. The last batch is coming in until the end of August. All of the shipments have been backed up, because as you can imagine, everybody in the country is ordering devices. So if we could give them a device, you literally be giving a second grade or third grade kid a device and saying, here, go home and figure this out. Because you're not in person to show them how to use it. Okay? And you can't, if you try to do them one at a time or whatever, then you just never going to get through all of it. So there's some problems with doing a virtual open. We did a survey of our parents, and about a third of them said that they would prefer to choose a virtual option. Okay? But 2/3 of them, and we got about 50% response on that survey, which is pretty high. Iberia, I talked to Iberia superintendent at St. Mary's today, and they're like in the 30 to 40% range. We managed to get up to 50%. And 2/3 of those parents are saying they want to send their kids back to school. And a lot of it is, if they can't send their kids back to school, they don't have that family structure that Ms. James talked about to be able to go back to work. They don't have dependable people they can leave their children with. And so they're going to go to work. You have to struggle to find somebody to watch their children. And when they come back from work, then they have to get on the computer and start trying to help the child. So it is a real hardship for a lot of the people in our community. People are struggling. So that's part of the basis of the decision. There's been a lot of thought and consideration that's gone into it. I've communicated with superintendents all around us to see what they're doing. Try to come up with something that was reasonable and manageable. I've told the principals multiple times, there's a solution to every problem we have. Is it easy? Probably not. Is it difficult? Are there going to be times when we're frustrated and mad at each other? Yes. But there is a solution to those problems. My recommendation is, as I've said a couple of times, based on what the health professionals are telling us, as well as the Department of Ed. I did speak to Dr. Stefanski at length last night, and she recommended, she said, y'all need to open. You need to get kids in school and open. There may come a time where we have to close, but you need to get them in and get school started, get them back in that routine. In October, November, the numbers spike, or what they think it may do. I've had that experience with them, and you can shut down more effectively. She said, if we follow the guidelines and the governor said today, wear your mask, keep your distance, use your hand sanitizer, do all the things clean like you're supposed to, that you can open safely. I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know what the future holds. I can only go off of what these experts are telling me. So my recommendation is to open as I've stated.
All right. Any discussion? Stay back.
I just have a couple of comments just to back up what you said. Maybe something with Ms. Thomas brought up. As far as the temperature, apparently you've done a lot of research, if not just your staff also. I've done a lot of research, because just listening to you, something simple like the temperature check. You're absolutely right as far as when you get out of a vehicle or a bus, the temperature. I went, the company I work for, I had to go to Coastal City, not thinking of anything of it. The guard at the gate tells me, come inside the office so I can drop your temperature, because in that 150-degree vehicle, there's no way you're gonna. Sure enough, I walked in the office with less than what it was supposed to be. But that just goes to show you, you did an in-depth research on that. And then as far as, these parents that are going back to work and everything, I see it firsthand in our school district when I'm delivering these kids that probably are 5, 6 years old by themselves at their house. And you go and you can tell they're off. And these parents have to go out, and it's a hardship. And listen, we're all in the same. I have family in the school system, I have grandkids, you know, in the education field, as far as teaching and all that. So it is a tough decision, but I think you've researched it enough. And you can ask anybody who's been pre-COVID-19. I'm a big proponent of starting Labor Day week. But in this case, we need to get our kids back in a structural environment and move forward. And that's just my opinion. And again, there is fear out there. Who is it? I mean, and the other thing is, what you were talking about the internet, I spoke to another board member today. You know, yes, most of the areas that we can cover internet, but probably everybody in this room could probably, you know, give their kids guidance to you. But what about those that don't have that guidance? They're gonna just put the book down on the side and take care of that, because that's probably what happened. It's starting in March. So that's just some things that we have, and again, it's no easy decision that the staff had to make, but I think we're doing the right thing in starting school. And again, numbers may spike, but then that's why we lean on the professionals on which way to go. That's all I have to say.
Okay, anybody else? Support you.
I concur with Mr. Abraham, certain issues, but the kid's gonna go to the restaurant. How many per restaurant? 2, 3. Recess period is 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And not only that, if a kid loses math, do teachers have extra math in the classroom? Or the math gets stolen, you have kids that play, you have extra math in the classroom?
We can have extra masks at school.
And also you stated that the kids gotta wash their hands every couple of hours or so. I think I read this somewhere, I've been reading stuff, it's crazy. What about the instructions then? I guess we have to wash their hands and listen the best way they can.
Well, there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna be different in the school.
There's a lot of teachers gonna be writing them up for different things, so we gotta be aware.
I know we're gonna have a lot of challenges, and what the state superintendent told us, and I've used this expression a number of times, is when you start going through all this, the list of challenges is very long, and it just keeps, every time you start talking about something, there's another problem that comes up. But he said, you're gonna have to open and work through those things. You know, we can't think of everything. Now, like the restroom, at the lower grades, the primary kids, they're escorted to the restroom all day. So they don't have to escort them, keep them up, keep them apart.
I just want, they tell the teachers, you know, it won't be like any classroom set, you might have to take time. You're gonna be doing things out of the ordinary, things of that nature.
I've told the same thing to the principals, because they're gonna be eating in the classroom and everything. And so there's gonna be a loss of instructional time, there's absolutely no doubt. You're correct.
David?
I forgot to bring up one, like, at the job I work at, we had to sign a waiver, like the mask, it's a medical condition would be that, you know, and I tried putting it on tonight, but we have to wear a shield. You know, when we're within a group of people and everything, that may be something that you guys on the buses, and, you know, we can just basically, you know, plexiglass shield is all it is. And it's a lot better than, I find it's a lot easier to work with the mask than the mask, because the mask are no way that, like she said, that 150-degree bus or whatever it is, 100-degree bus.
Ms. Johnson?
Excuse me. I agree with him on opening school after Labor Day.
Yes.
But I asked Mr. Al, and he told me, he said, it's a good idea, Ms. Johnson, but we need to get the students in school so they can be ready on the Chromebooks. The children know how to use the Chromebook. So he said by us opening school on that date, as we give them, like if the governor calls a school closed, they'll know how to operate that Chromebook. So I thought after Labor Day, but I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I think, you know.
I think we should.
And I'd like to say something too. I mean, as being a teacher before, I know there's gonna be some struggles. There's gonna be a lot of learning. It'll be up to the teachers, the principals, and the supervisors watching. to make sure that all of the steps we're taking to prevent things from happening, be in place. We're gonna have to monitor more, buses, we're gonna have to do, everybody's gonna have to do everything, there's no doubt about it. But in my thinking, after I've seen, the calendar, the way it's put back some, and all the parts of them coming in at a time to get acclimated to it. Those are the times it's gonna take to learn how to handle themselves, how to be safe, how to wash their hands, how to do all of these things to prevent passing on the virus or whatever. You know? And I think that the sooner we can start training these kids, the better off we're gonna be. I mean, I personally just before coming here, went to Walmart to look for something. And the amount of people going in there, everybody has their mask on. You know, they're staying distance away as much as they can. We're gonna have to do the same thing. Everybody's gonna have to get acclimated to doing these safety precautions. And these kids are gonna have to learn it. And I find it best to be learned by a teacher in a structured classroom than to come later on with no structure, no safety precautions, and just get put back in that classroom without being prepared. You know? Or if we have to prepare them, you're pushing it back even further. I think we need to go in there and with all the precautions you just have put together, I think it suffices to the safety precautions being presented by the governor and everybody else. I think we need to get them acclimated to it, into it, and get things started again. And we can always adjust this. If we see spikes somewhere or some's not being in compliance or something, we can always have another special meeting or whatever, and we adjust this. You know? Like we were saying, we have holidays, we have all these extra days and stuff in there at the time. But if we don't start doing them, and we run into other problems, whether it's snow or hurricane or whatever, you know, that's even gonna make it worse. So we all gonna have to put in that extra and make sure things are done safely and according to the plan we put in place. And if not, we'll have to adjust it.
One last thing, Mr. Darcel, when we spraying the disinfectant in the bus, I know when they did it at my employment, when they sprayed it, a lot of the windshield knobs froze up, so be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's an adjustment on the knob.
yeah, so just be careful, you know, maybe cover up the knob or have, what they've done is they've sprayed the disinfectant and wiped it down and everything.
But the items is just to use to spray the bus.
Okay.
They're going to have their own little personalized bottles where you can spray the seats and wipe.
I'd like to make a motion to,
Wait.
okay.
The reason why we said school should start, the children are getting beaten on, the parents abusing the children, divorce is happening, and the parents need to go to work. So we gotta look at all of this. I know Mr. L. did research for the teachers, for everybody's safety in the school. I don't think he would want to open school without you all being safe. Safety, when I was on the committee, he said, we doing safety first. Teachers, I don't know how many minutes you're supposed to teach. But you have to stop and let the children wash their hands. He's not looking at you to teach like 45 minutes, you have to stop a certain amount. You just have to do what you have to do. The only way we're gonna know if it's gonna work, we have to try it. And if it's not gonna work, we just shut it down. The children would know how to operate the Chromebook. That's the main thing we try to get in. I know, the safety. Y'all need my help. When school open, I'm willing to come here.
All right, Ms. Davis, you made a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve policies reflecting the changes made to July 15, 2020 Best Week.
All right, do I have a second? Second one, Ms. Johnson. All right, we're gonna have to vote again. Let's see, Mr. Steve Hughley,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Vita, Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Clayton?
Yes.
Mr. Stelling?
Yes.
Mr. Butchie?
Yep.
Mr. Abear?
Yes.
Mr. Knott?
Yes.
Yes,
And I vote yes. Motion passes. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and the second one, Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.